The first Presbyterian church, 4 East River Road, was built in 1886 in the shingle style. It was designed by Thomas Hastings. The shingle style is known by the uniform covering of shingles. The interior of the church is also shingled completely, and the ceiling is a barrel vault. Notice the form is organic and not typical of ecclesiastical architecture. Take note of the staggered window heights, bell tower and turrets, and the porte cochere. The Borden Carriage House at 68 West River Road was also designed by Thomas Hastings and was built in 1889 in a similar style. The upper levels of the house are shingle style, with 2 clocks featured in the north and south ends of the gambrel roof. Notice the windows and the tower room. The lower level is constructed of a huge ashlar cut stone and is built in the style known as Richardsonian Romanesque. It is worth noting that there are few styles that are named for an individual architect. The heavy stone and the Romanesque arches with small, deep windows are typical of the style. The little silver train station is the same style. The interior of the carriage area of the house is also shingled. The clocks are no longer working, but the clock mechanism is prominently displayed in the loft of the home as a piece of sculpture. The Edwin Drexel Godfrey Carriage House and outbuildings at 90 West River Road were once part of the property called Pompamora. According to the history obtained by the current owner, the buildings date back to 1889. The property extended from what is now called Pompamora Drive down to the river. The original house was at the top of the hill and was built in the Italian Renaissance Revival style. The remaining buildings are built in a similar style, with some elements of French Norman and Romanesque revival, such as the round-top arched windows. The original roof was probably tiled to match the main house. The carriage house was originally meant to be used for automobiles and converted into a ballroom. The other buildings on the property have been meticulously maintained and house a chapel, a carousel, and a theater. The Jonathan Cooper House at 21 Hance Road was built in 1887 by Jonathan Cooper in the Second Empire style. There is a great deal of intrigue surrounding Jonathan and his family. One can read about it in Randall Gabrielin's Rumson Shaping a Superlative Suburb on page 86. Take note of the paired casement windows with their round tops in the dormers of the mansard roof. The Second Empire style is one that is symmetrical, at least in the main block of the house, and always features the mansard roof, which was developed by the French architect Mansart to solve a zoning restriction problem. The porch was originally open and has been enclosed by a previous owner. The Robert MacArthur House at 147 Rumson Road, also known as Tall Trees, was built around 1902. The architect, Warrington G. Lawrence, is suspected of designing the house because he designed his brother Usel's house around the same time. The house is built in the colonial revival style with an angled floor plan. When comparing this house to the home of his brother next door, one can see many differences in style, leading some to speculate about the accuracy of the claim. The Usel MacArthur House at 141 Rumson Road was built in 1903 in the colonial revival style. The architect was Warrington G. Lawrence. Notice the symmetry of the house, the balanced dormers, and the paired windows, all typical of the style. The other brother, Thomas, built his home nearby, on what became known as Rumson Hill. The sycamore trees that line Sycamore and Buttonwood Drive were planted by Thomas to line the driveway to the house, which is no longer extant. The Schiff Carriage House at 59 Buena Vista was designed by E. Harris James and built around 1900. It's built in the French Norman style with its steep roof system with incorporated dormers and gables with clipped hip roof sections. The The smooth stucco finish is accentuated by coined corners, which are common for the style at the time. The plan is U-shaped and basically symmetrical, with a clock tower in the center and two cupola in the flanking wings. The plan is U-shaped and basically symmetrical, with a clock tower in the center and two cupola in the flanking wings. The clock has a date on it from 1893, and a survey from the larger estate shows a building in the location as early as 1889. The stable was converted to a residence in the 1950s. St. George's on the Hill on the southwest corner of Ridge and Bellevue Avenue was designed by architect A.J. Bloom and built by Henry Wilson in 1875 in the Gothic Revival style. The original building was built with vernacular stone and has smaller window dormers in the steeply pitched roof. Notice the Gothic arches and windows, including the lancet windows in the upper story and the rosette windows at the peak. The buttresses on the sides of the building also allude to the Gothic style. The dormers were later expanded in the Tudor Revival style, typified by the half-timbered and stucco motif. A later addition to the building continued in the Tudor Revival style, with the Tudor arch prominent on the new doors to the addition. The property known as Rahalian at 45 Bellevue Avenue was originally built in 1887 as a shingle-style country home after a McKim, Mead & White design. It has undergone numerous renovations and additions. The current Tudor Revival-style mansion bears no resemblance to the original house. The property itself is also worth mentioning as it contains numerous majestic specimen trees. The Robert Hance House at 128 Rumson Road at the corner of Bellevue Avenue was built in 1845 and is one of the older homes that have withstood the test of time. The house is now a colonial revival style, but there is some speculation that the home was once an Italianate-style home based on the long windows in the lower story. The Italianate-style home at 108 Rumson Road is known as the E. Gay Hamilton House. It was built around 1867. He was one of the original organizers of the St. George's Church. The Italianate style is one of perfect symmetry. They are often cube-like in their mass. The roof is very low-pitched and not very visible from the ground. The windows are tall and aligned in rows. Notice the attic story windows, which are surrounded by brackets and are placed under the large eaves, which are also typical of the style. The porch and the porte cochere are most likely additions to the original house. The Thomas Vider House at 99 Rumson Road, also known locally as the Christensen House and now Sheep's Run, was designed by Harry Lindemann and built in 1918 in the Tudor Revival style. The construction of the house is in masonry, and the interior walls are made of gypsum blocks with plaster over them. Fire was a major concern for many of the homes designed around this time. Many decorative elements were incorporated into the design of the house, including the sculptural ironwork in the windows created by Oscar B. Bach, featuring an avian motif. The house was literally divided into pieces and moved to create two subdivisions from the original house. In 2008, the house was restored to its near original design as part of the V&A Showcase House Tour. The house known as Lauriston, located at 91 Rumson Road, having a mailing address of 2 Tuxedo Lane, is the first house in Rumson to have a National Registry status. The house was designed by Leon Cubberley for Henry and Laura Caesar and was completed in 1913. The house is an Italian Renaissance Revival style. Notice the perfect symmetry and the longer windows on the lower level. Also take note of the dormers and the arch pediments on the dormers, a motif that was ubiquitous in the style in Italy during the Renaissance. There are some photographs showing the house with colonial shutters, a modern addition that is not appropriate for the house or the style. The home at 87 Rumson Road was originally built by Guy Lowell for Hardin Lake Crawford. The eclectic design incorporated many design elements. Take note of the massive chimneys, the half-timbered front gable with the hips and valleys that allude to the French Norman style, but with large overhangs. The main block of the house is symmetrical, but the flanking wind on the left side is not. The trim around the front door resembles a temple entrance, and the window trim also incorporates different design elements into a very cohesive combination of styles. Also noteworthy is the shingle coursing, which alludes to the Flemish bond typical in many brick buildings of the time. The William Street House, also known as the Hermitage, is located at 79 Rumson Road on the corner of Avenue of Two Rivers. It is a Stanford white design, and it is an excellent example of their shingle style. Note the asymmetrical and organic form. The home was built in 1882. A garage addition was designed and built by George Rudolph in the 1980s and is a perfect example of sympathetic design. The Theodore Moss House at 55 Rumson Road was originally designed by Dr. Charles Shepard and was sold to Theodore Moss in an unfinished condition. J.E. Denise, a local builder, took over the job and finished it in 1889. The home is an example of the early colonial revival style. Notice the garland friezes. This house was also the home of Dr. George Sheehan, the author of many books on running, and a late convert to the triathlon. The Marie Stuart Palmer House is at 54 Rumson Road and was built in 1894 by Pearsall and Bogle. The house was designed by Rossiter and Wright. The symmetrical facade of the house and the dormers are early examples of the colonial revival style, but the curved wall, tall chimney, and the shingle cladding are a transition from the shingle style. It is worth noting here that architects often combine elements of design in their work. The Seabright Lawn Tennis and Cricket Club is also on the National Registry. The clubhouse was designed by architects Renwick, Aspinwall, and Russell in the shingle style and was built in 1886. It is the oldest tennis club in the United States. The Church of the Holy Cross at 30 Ward Avenue was designed by Patrick Keeley of Brooklyn, New York. It is a shingle-style ecclesiastical building with Gothic and Romanesque revival elements incorporated into the design. The church was redesigned and a large addition was added, enlarging the space and reversing the direction of the interior plan. Take note of the shingled buttresses and the combination of round and Gothic arches in the window trim. The A.J. Corcoran Windmill stands at 37 Ward Avenue. It was built by A.J. Corcoran, who held a patent for his pumping mechanism. This is one of the last two windmills remaining in Rumson. It was painstakingly renovated by the current owner. The house at 31 Rumson Road, known locally as the Larkin House, was built around 1900 by James Monod. The house is also known as Queen Anne. The house is a shingle style now, but the original house may have been clad with clapboard siding. It is thought that the house was built by Charles V. Shropshire. There is some evidence that the house was designed by the daughter of Mrs. Joseph Monod, who in one account is referred to as Lulu, and in another, Sarah Moy. The porch, with its triple columns and rail motif, allude to Moorish design elements. St. George's on the River is the replacement church for the congregation that formerly occupied St. George's on the Hill Church before it was decommissioned. It was built as a memorial to William Everard Strong and dedicated by his widow Alice and was consecrated in June of 1908. The church was designed by Walker and Gillette and built by Swallows and Howes of New York. The building is an example of the English Gothic revival and has an authentic gargoyle on the southeast corner of the bell tower. Notice that the arches are not as dramatically pointed as other Gothic windows in the original church on the hill. The building is granite and limestone. The large English Gothic window on the front of the building features a stained glass image of St. George slaying the dragon. Architect Joseph Sanford Shanley designed and built the house at 2 Avenue of Two Rivers South for his mother in 1927. It is a classic French Norman-style country home. Notice the wall dormers, where the wall continues in plane with the lower wall, but is turned into a gable. The steep pitch roof lines and the hip and valley roof system is also typical of the style. The Metcalf estate is located on Bingham Avenue at 142. The substantial Georgian Revival house was designed by the architects J.R. and F.B. Hinchman and completed in 1928. The Metcalf estate was also the host to a V&A showcase house and was thoroughly renovated in the process. The home is on approximately 26 acres and is now known as Scott High Farm for the Scottish Highland cattle that are raised there. Bingham Hall was originally called the Port Washington Church. It was a non-denominational church that was built by Thomas Hunt in 1842. It was later acquired by the Presbyterian congregation who held services there until the church on River Road was completed. The style of the building is Greek Revival. The pitch of the roof system is the same as most Greek temples, although the bell tower in the front of the building obscures the pediment. The frieze band and the wide corner boards, along with the rigid symmetry, are identifying features. The building was completely renovated by Rumson Management and serves as a town meeting place.